I like to travel a lot less than I did. I was much easier traveling than now. Like, I don't want to be away from my kids.
Mhm.
Like, as I was leaving to come here this week, my 4-year-old son turns to me and he goes, "Don't go to Nashville, Dad. Don't go to Nashville." And I was like, that is the saddest thing. It tears your heart out. You're like, why are you doing this? I did inform him. He's like, how am I gonna know when you're back? It's like, well, because I was coming back late at night. I'm coming back late at night. And he says, how do I know then you're gonna be back? So I'm gonna come in your room. I'm gonna take pants out of your drum and put them on your head. And he said,
That's so cute.
And he said, okay, so tonight.
I like Ben the dad. We don't get this of the Ben. Like,
Yeah,
this is actually great.
Yes.
Do your best to give a summary of the history of Candace Owens and Ben Shapiro.
The actual history is that, thank God, I've had a really, well, when I say privileged life, I don't mean privileged in terms of economics. I grew up in a house with 3 younger sisters, and all 4 of us shared 1 bedroom in a 2-bedroom house with 1 bathroom until I was 11. So it really isn't it really isn't privileged that way. I'm privileged because I have an amazing set of parents. I have a 2-parent family. I have great siblings. I grew up in a really solid community that shared, I think, a really great set of values. I was able to go to good schools, and I was able to have excellent teachers. And my parents made sure that I learned from as many people as humanly possible. They opened a lot of doors for me to be able to experience different ideas. And because of that, and because I tend to be pretty hungry for knowledge, I spent an enormous amount of time outside, in and outside of school, reading, educating myself, becoming good at what it is that I do. And I spent a lot of years perfecting that. I mean, I've been writing syndicated columns since I was 17 years old. I'm now 37 years old. So I've been doing this for 20 years. And you try enough things and you fail at enough things, and eventually you get good at things. And I think that's the story of this company. I think that's the story of sort of my career. I think the most important thing about me personally is that I happen to be a fantastic father and a fantastic husband. Those are the 2 most important things about me, and I say that with all due humility. But I actually am really, like, of the things in my life that I'm good at, I am the best at being a father, and I'm the best at being a husband. I'm excellent at it. And I take great pride in that.
I love that, because I think family is the most important thing. Like, it really is. Like, none of it means anything if you don't have your family. If you don't have your family in order, if you don't have your house in order. And I think that that's kind of one of the things that we really get right as conservatives, and the left really gets wrong with them trying to strip down the family, because it all starts from there. If that's not right, nothing in your life can really be right. I guess my story is very obvious, I guess very opposite, in that I came from nothing. I had a very disruptive household growing up, but I was very fortunate to have my grandparents. And when they saw what we were living in, which was, a roach-infested apartment. Me and my 2 sisters shared a bedroom. My grandfather just said, I don't want my grandbabies to grow up like that, because I worked too hard for them to grow up like that. He grew up on a sharecropping farm, grew up in the segregated South. Never, ever heard from his mouth growing up in his household. I moved into his house when I was 9. He's never uttered one bad sentence about a white person. And so it was sort of that quiet knowledge. He never, ever said anything against white people. And I think just being able to sit around the breakfast table with him every morning, he was, all about reading the Bible. We had prayers. We had to study from the Bible every single morning as he'd make us this big Southern breakfast. Like, that is what shaped Candace Owens. That is the Candace Owens story. And it was happening subliminally. I mean, it never meant politics to me. I just knew my parents got something wrong. My grandparents got something right. And that's ironic, because we're supposed to believe that the way my grandfather suffered is why we're dealing with all of this stuff now. My father obviously grew up in a later time, and yet he got something wrong, and my grandfather got something right growing up in the 40s, married at 17, never, divorced my grandmother, stayed with her until her dying day in 2013. So, my story is my grandfather's story. And I think my perspective of the world is informed by, how could I, as a Black American, complain when my grandfather never did? And his first job was when he was 5, laying tobacco out to dry on a sharecropping farm. I'm insulted by Black Americans that complain today. I'm genuinely insulted by it. I think we do our ancestors the greatest disservice, the ones who worked hard so that we could have these opportunities, to walk into any room and to not say, look, me, I'm a Black person, and so I deserve this. So the people that worked, didn't live through a day of strife are the ones with all the complaints. And my granddad was just sort of a no nonsense, you're going to work every day kind of guy. And he still remains the greatest blessing and the biggest influence in my life.
Out of the 2 of you, which one trends on Twitter more often?
I think I trend more violently, if that makes any more sense.
I kind of think that's true.
Yeah.
I kind of think that's true. Although right now it seems like there is this sort of ping pong effect where you trend and then I defend you and I trend,
Right.
or vice versa.
Or vice versa, yeah.
So it's good. We've created a sort of Twitter dynamic here.
Right, but I think if you went back, he's probably trended more, but when I trend, it will last for 72 hours.
I think that's right.
Yeah.
When you guys find out that you're trending, what is the process from there? Do you stop and look at everything, or are you just a normal part of your day?
Always late. We both always find out like 12 hours after the trend has started.
Yeah, so I tend to trend disproportionately on Sabbath. So I don't find out until after Sabbath is over. I'm like, wow, I had a good day, so I don't really care. But it used to bother me. Like 2-3 years ago, it used to bother me. And I actually did remove Twitter from my phone. So I don't actually have Twitter on my phone specifically because I don't want to know. And I figure I have enough people who work at this company that if something is really bad, they'll let me know. And it's never anything bad. It's always something dumb that Media Matters took out of context and that makes perfect sense in context. And it trends for no reason.
Right, exactly. I feel the same way. I feel like it's usually something really stupid. And when I look at it, I'm like, what am I even trending over? And as of recently, it's been extra stupid because it's surrounding Cardi B.
When was the first time that you both heard about the other?
I knew about Ben. I know the first time I started watching his videos, when I started working for Turning Point USA, when Charlie Kirk first reached out to me and wanted me to work for Turning Point, he said, every single day you need to train to debate because they will try to kill you before you can even become big. And he gave me a video of Ben Shapiro on stage with Black Lives Matter. And it's an epic video, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
It's like one of the best videos.
It's an older one, yeah.
He's like completely by himself, and there's like 3 woke Black Lives Matter activists, and he shuts the entire room up, including them, by asking them, just about their entire ideology. I mean, I can't even do it. Like I would do it complete. I'd like to see if he could do it on the spot because it's pretty amazing. But I think he was just fired up, and they all just get quiet talking about Black on Black crime and Black culture, and it's pretty beautiful.
So I believe the first time I heard of you is when you were working with Charlie.
Right.
But I'd obviously that's the first time that I know I'd come across your name before, and I'm sure it was because of one of the viral videos that you had made talking about race in America and saying things that no one else will say. And I was like every other conservative, going, "Who is this? And how does she have the bravery to say this?" So that was a new one.
Yeah.
Which one of you would win in a debate?
What are we debating? It's a good question.
That is a good question.
It's a good question. Depends on what
I
we're
feel like
debating.
there's certain subjects.
There's definitely going to be some topics that Ben's going to be like, he could probably hand me my ass. And there's definitely going to be some topics that I think I can hand him his ass on.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
How should people respond to the cancel mob?
I mean,
pretty much me. If you start apologizing to the left, you'll never stop apologizing. So don't apologize ever for anything to them, because for them it's not about them actually wanting an apology. It's what they actually want is submission. They just want to see you submit, and you should never submit to somebody that's just looking for dominance.
never show your neck to somebody who's seeking to chop off your head.
Yep.
Can political conservatives ever be canceled, or is it just people who come out as conservatives?
Well, I mean, listen, I think there are certain rules that if you violate them, it's a problem. I'm not going to pretend there are no rules in the public discourse. There are certain people who say things that are so wildly out of bounds that it's very difficult to defend the things that they say. But I will say that typically speaking, you can only be canceled by your own side. It's people who come out as conservatives who are in real danger because those people have not yet established a base inside conservative movements. So if you are working in Hollywood and you're not openly conservative, you can be canceled because the people who surround you are not people who you can trust. But if you're you or if you're me, and in that way, we're safer than a lot of the people who are, in Hollywood and who are living undercover.
Right.
For us, we get to say what we want for a living.
Yeah.
And if the left comes after us, so what? We have a huge base of people who support us and love us and back what we do. But I'm not going to pretend that it's easy for people who are out there. There are a lot of people in kind of the conservative side who say, well, no matter what your job, you should stand up and you should speak out right now. A lot of those people have families to support, and I have a lot of sympathy for them.
Yeah, I totally agree. And that's a really solid point. Like, you're more at risk if you're lying about who you are. Because if you're already out and you are who you are, then it's like, all right, well, you're amongst friends. And really, it would take a mob of conservatives to be upset with something that I did to really cancel me. Because obviously the left's not going to take you. You don't want to be on the left, and the conservatives won't have you. So I think that you kind of nailed that answer.
What is something that you're most proud of in your career?
Yeah, what have you done, Ben?
I mean, honestly, for me, it's the number of people who I get letters from who say that they have not just switched their political viewpoint, which is nice, but they've actually changed how they live their lives. I get a lot of these kinds of letters from people. Thank God. It means that when they listen to the show, they're getting something more than just the politics from it. And people who say that they felt like their life is on the wrong track, I've gotten letters from women who've said that they've not had abortions because they've listened to the show,
Wow.
or men who've said that they've were thinking about breaking up with a girlfriend who was pregnant, and said they got together and they got married and he got a job. I've got a lot of those kind of letters. People who
Yeah.
have decided that they were going to get a job, and I got one letter from a guy who said that when he started listening to the show, he was homeless, and then he decided he was going to somehow enroll himself in college and go to
Wow.
law school. He ended up, I believe, at Harvard Law School, according to him.
Yeah.
Those kind of stories are pretty amazing. And it does show
Wow.
you that politics has outsized influence, especially when you're discussing things that aren't just politics, but deeper values underlying politics.
Yeah. I would say two things that I'm proud of. The first is that I never compromised who I was, and I think that that's really hard when you're in the political space, because there's a lot of temptation to compromise who you are, and people telling you what you have to be. And I think I've stood firm on that. But then, secondly, which is more in line with what we are saying, is nothing makes my heart feel bigger than when a Black person comes up to me and says, "I feel like you gave me my life back." And it's such a heavy compliment because I know exactly what they're saying. Black people in particular don't even, it's like running around and not realizing that you're in prison, and then suddenly somebody says to you, I always say it's like the allegory of the cave. You know what I mean? You don't even know that you're living in this cave. You have no idea that these are shadows on the wall and it's not reality. And then suddenly somebody goes, "Oh wait, here's all of this, the entire world outside, and you can see for the first time." And when they say that to me, when they say, "Candace, I feel like you gave me my life back," that's how I felt. I felt like Thomas Sowell gave me my life back. I didn't even know that my life was taken away. So that compliment always hits me the hardest, because I've been there before.
What is something about you that you think each other would be surprised to know?
I think I'm probably nerdier than people probably have me pegged. Like me and my husband, it's weird. I think people don't think I'm as much of a bookworm as I am. I'm very much into books, and I think when I first hit the scene, probably so many people were like, "Oh, she's just doing the like cute conservative thing," you know what I mean? I'm like, no, 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 no. Like I actually love to read. I've always been a bit of a dweeb, and English was always my favorite subject. So I love like the greats, Plato, Aristotle, like all of that stuff. And I think that probably doesn't read when I'm like smacking down celebs on Twitter.
Yeah, I mean, for me, obviously, it's that I'm a platinum award-winning rap artist. If you just looked at me, you wouldn't know that. But the truth is that I do a version of WAP that absolutely slaps.
It trends.
It does.
Okay, here's the thing. You wouldn't be that bad of a rapper because you speak fast.
Oh yeah.
And if you talk fast, you all you need is a little bit of flow and some rhymes, and you probably would actually kill it.
I will never try that. That sounds
We'll never
amazingly
know.
terrible.
Yeah,
We'll never know.
we'll
It'll just
never
be a
know.
mystery,
Mhm.
wrapped in enigma forever.
What is your least favorite part of being a political commentator?
Oh, I 100% would say it is the exposure unnecessarily that my family has to it. Meaning that, like, it's very difficult, I think, for my sisters when they go online and people are debating me. So it's like, I don't care whatever I have to receive, but it always sucks when people that I care about who have nothing to do with this lifestyle suddenly have to answer for statements that I've said and things that I believe in. So I think that's probably the
That's
suckiest
definitely a
part.
good answer. For me, it was probably the security that has been attendant around everything. So it went from being I could walk around anywhere without any security to my wife having to get used to security, my kids having to get used to security.
Mhm.
Now they think it's natural because they've had it since they were very small. But it's at the beginning, it was a bit of a culture shock for them. Unfortunately, it's a nasty world out there, and Twitter is just a terrible place. It's just
Right.
a terrible place filled with horrible people. It is hell on earth. So naturally, it's where we make a good deal of our money. So
Right. I totally agree. I totally agree. Family.
You're both stranded on a desert island separately. What
Not
are
with Cardi B.
what are 3 things you'd want to have with you?
A family?
yeah, exactly. I mean, it can't be people. So I assume those
Things
are the
or
rules.
people, yeah. Yeah.
And I assume there's
Things.
enough food, right? I mean, because otherwise, this is a real short stay.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if there's food, because let me just be frank about this. In an apocalypse, I'm the first one to go, right? Like my skill set just does not apply in an apocalypse, right? If there's a zombie apocalypse, like I can't do plumbing. I'm not I'm not a great shot. Like I'm not, like I can talk to the zombies, but I feel like it won't be super convincing. Like so, my skill,
You can debate
exactly.
the
My skill
zombies.
set just does not meet with the approval of pre-civilization. So it's
really funny.
so yeah. I mean, but if the question is what can I bring with me, copy of the complete Tanakh, which would be the Old Testament, the prophets, and the writings. the complete works of Shakespeare, and the complete audio playlist of probably Beethoven.
Guys, he just took all books. Well, Beethoven, I guess, the audio playlist of Beethoven. Music's a good one. Music is a good one. Gosh, I don't know what I would take. That's really hard for me. I don't know. I mean, I definitely would take a Bible, but it would be one object. I don't know about the other two. If I can't take people, I don't really know. I mean, I feel like I don't have that much of an attachment to anything that's on this earth that I would be like, I must take this without me. It would always be people. You know, it would be my husband. I'm actually, by the way, if you're trying to survive, I can cut a pipe. My dad was a plumber, so
Oh no, I have no question.
I'm good.
Here's the thing.
If you need to take someone, take me.
So number
Like,
one, you're going to be 100% more useful than I am, but
Yeah.
that's true of every single person who's in this room, in this building, and probably in this city, right? Like I'm a trained lawyer, okay? Like I'm the person that they kill for
You
food
never
first. Like in a
know.
cannibal
The zombies
situation,
might get it together, and you
in a
be like,
cannibal
"All right, listen."
situation, my only saving grace is that I am not a large person,
Yeah.
right? Because I would be certainly the first to be sacrificed, without a doubt.
Yeah, I feel like we have to get you, like, remember the Survivor on an island? That would be some really good reality TV. Survivor with, like, Ben
See,
on an island.
I feel like naked and alone, I'm toast, right?
Yeah.
Survivor, I'd be okay.
Yeah?
Oh yeah, I can manipulate my way out of that.
Yeah, right.
Come on, like that's
I love that. Yeah, convincing. That's all you
Right.
really need to be.
exactly right. You don't have to
Convincing.
be good at anything
Yeah.
to survive. You just have to be convincing, and
Yeah.
there I feel like I could handle myself.
Yeah.
But if it involves like starting a fire, killing an animal,
Yeah.
it's like no, where's the supermarket?
Yeah.
Where
This is
are there
really
matches? Like
uncivilized.
what,
Yeah.
this makes no sense.
How will conservatives know when we're making progress in the culture war?
Think we are now. I think the fact that we were just asked, you know, how do you respond to all the times you're trending? I mean, the only reason we're trending is because the left is threatened by us. And we're able to drum up enough conversation regarding what we've said or, you know, regarding what we're doing. And I think that that is one of the good things about Daily Wire is they understand that there is this huge hole, this vacuous space right now being created by the cancel culture, where eventually Daily Wire could be the new NBC, ABC, because you know cancer culture is a cancer and it will eventually eat itself, and something else will have to pop up in its place. So I think conservatives get that, and we're kind of out there doing what we have to do.
I mean, Candace's rise in the cultural space is really an excellent indicator as to where we are. I mean, the fact is that people who are most respected and most successful members of the culture are responding directly to things that Candace is saying because they are concerned that conservatives might be making inroads in this particular space. And I think that they are going to, the left is just going to continue to provide the right with opportunities by taking popular things and destroying them because they have to destroy everything that is good and decent about the country right now, including all of its fundamental institutions. The more they continue to destroy that stuff, the more ground they're going to open up for us. I mean, they can continue to do this, but they should understand that they are alienating a huge number of Americans. And there are those of us out there who are entrepreneurial enough to fill that space and provide alternatives.
Yep.
What do your spouses love or hate about what you do?
My husband hates that social media is a part of what I have to do because it's such a time suck. I hate it too, though. So we agree on that front. It's just like I have to do a video and respond and do all of this because you have to be engaged in social media. At least I do in a way that's meaningful. He loves everything I do. My husband's my biggest fan, so he's always amazed at things that I'm doing, and we're just such a great partnership. I mean, he is truly the business mind, I'm the creative mind, and it just works. So
number one, how long have you been married?
I have been married for just under 2 years.
Yeah, so he loves what you do now. I've been married for almost 13 years, so like a long time. And it starts off with a lot of enthusiasm, Candace, and over time, certain things become more irksome.
Like what?
Well,
to see into my future.
Yeah, it mostly just it's always the time suck, and because I mean now you have a kid, so as you have more kids and as the family becomes bigger and the time demands become larger, it's not just I need to take off time to do a video. It's like you don't have time to go to the bathroom, right? You don't have time to do anything. Like all time is just gone, and the demands on the time are extraordinary. And so it used to be that my wife was deeply concerned with what happened during the week. And, on a normal day, we'd sort of sit down and discuss what had happened at my work during the week. And now it's like, we look at each other, it's 9:30 at night, the kids have finally gone to bed, they're going to wake me up at 5 o'clock in the morning. And we look at each other and we're like, okay, we can spend some time and talk about our lives, or we can just collapse. And most nights, you end up just collapsing. And so that means that at the end of the week, she'll say like, well, how was your week? I was like, I don't even remember the beginning of this week.
Yeah.
Right? So the thing that she hates the most about my career is that it takes time away from, all the stuff that actually matters, all the family kind of
Mhm.
stuff. And the thing I do love the most about my wife is that she does not give a damn what I do. I mean, she really does not care. She doesn't, she finds it interesting and she follows it sort of. But she could not care less who we are meeting. Like, we've, met every important politician in the country. She does not care.
Right.
We've met a bunch of celebrities. She does not care.
Right.
It's so charming. It's so wonderful.
Yeah.
I have so many great stories of her meeting people who are extremely famous and having no clue who they are. And it's one of the most charming things about her. It's also
Right.
how I know that she loves me for me. Number one, because anyone who marries me would have to love me for me, because there really is nothing else to offer. But beyond that, we met when she was 20 and I was 23.
Oh, that's so cute.
And so
How did you meet? Where'd you meet?
my sister fixed us up. She was at UCLA at the time, and I just graduated Harvard Law, and I came back, and my sister said, "There's this really beautiful girl who is going to UCLA, and I think you're really gonna like her." And I said, "Sounds great." She said, "But she's dating somebody else." I said, "Well, I can't do that. So just wait." And then about 6 months later, I was like, "Whatever happened to that girl?" She's like, "Well, I think she's single now." And I
Wow.
was like, "Okay, great." And so we met. Our first date was September 5th. I proposed on December 15th. She accepted on
Of the same year.
Oh yeah,
Wow.
she accepted on December 22nd, and that was so we dated for about 3 months.
Wow.
And
Me and my husband were 2 weeks from meeting to engaged.
really,
Yeah.
I can't believe you beat me.
Yeah.
That's
I beat you.
amazing.
No one
Like,
will
normally-
ever beat us.
I know normally my story is like,
Yeah.
wow, 3
3
months.
months. I'm like,
And
wow,
like
what
2
took you
weeks.
so long?
So how'd you
Yeah.
guys meet?
I was speaking it's actually one of the most hilarious stories that involves Russell Brand and Paul Joseph Watson somehow. I was speaking in London.
That's a weird story.
I know, doing Russell Brand's podcast, and I was supposed to meet PJW for a drink really quickly because we had known each other from the Twitterverse, but I didn't know him. And because it was I didn't really know him, I was kept pushing him back because I was working and Russell Brand's podcast went over, and 3 hours go by and I say to my assistant, just tell PJW, we'll do it tomorrow. I'll try to meet him tomorrow. And she's like, no, there's a dinner. He had his friends set up a dinner and there's 30 of the biggest politicians in the UK waiting for you. George Farmer, my husband, was the one who had set up the dinner. And so I was 3 hours late to a dinner that was done in my honor, and literally saw him, knew the second I saw it. It was the weirdest thing. Saw his face and I felt like I knew him my whole life. And he proposed to me, followed me back to America. I was speaking at what's the thing at the end of the year that we do?
SAS.
SAS.
Mhm.
Followed me back to SAS. We were engaged 2 weeks later. Everyone thought we were completely nuts. We had our first kiss. He apologized. He proposed on a plane going.
Well, that is the most romantic place.
Yeah.
Buttigieg says.
Yeah, literally, he was FaceTiming me going down to South Africa. Proposed on a plane. I said yes. He had our first kiss, London Heathrow Airport, after we were engaged.
Wow.
Yeah, Terminal 5, and everyone thought we were nuts. His parents, my family. Best decision I ever made. We were just meant to be.
That's a great story.
Yeah, it
And
never
that's how you
happens
became a
that way.
princess.
And by the way, if my daughter or son ever came back, I'd be like, "You're not marrying the person ever too. Are you crazy?"
Oh yeah. No, the thing I definitely learned is that as soon as my kids get engaged, within 48 hours they're getting married.
Yeah.
Because the period between engagement and marriage is the worst period in the entire world.
I loved
It's
it.
terrible.
I loved
Of
it.
course you loved it.
Yeah, I loved it. It was
course you did.
everything's been such a walk in the park, and I don't know. I think I'm just getting lucky, but
And my
marriage
wife
has been wonderful.
my wife, after I asked her to marry me, she was like, because the way that it works is I told her that I loved her on November 15th. She did not say that she loved me until December 15th. So for a month, all of those conversations were super awkward. Right? every conversation.
I love you.
Okay, bye.
So nice, Ben. Bye.
Right, exactly.
So sweet of you, Ben. I thank you.
So for a month. But it actually turned out that she was not wrong, because as soon as she said, "I love you back," the first words out of her mouth were, "Okay, so we're getting married."
Yeah.
It's we're done. Okay,
Yeah.
done. Mission accomplished. And she was like, "Can't we just enjoy this time?" I'm like, "You don't understand. I'm not enjoying this time. It's a very not enjoyable time. Now I'm sitting here, we love each other, and I have to sit here and wonder if something's going to, this is a very not enjoyable time."
I love that. You
And
just
so-
execute immediately.
Yeah, exactly.
That's so sweet.
Last question. How has parenthood affected your political views or career aspirations?
Definitely has made everything more severe, where it's it's not just it's not just a political debate anymore,
Yeah,
right?
that's right.
Like when we talk about transgender restaurant, we can get on stage, we can say 1,000 times why it's wrong. Well, suddenly when the people are starting, the politics sort of say, okay, no, we need some laws now. We need to make sure that there's no, California has proposed a bill, no boy or girl. Okay, is my child going to grow up in this? Is this even the same America that I'm gonna that I grew up in? Is everything about race? My child's biracial. It's more severe now. It kind of is no. I need to speak up even louder if I wasn't loud enough before. And we need to just say, this is right and this is wrong. It's not between right and left anymore. It's between right and wrong. And this is why the danger of people that say they're too fearful to speak out, just now is not the time to be too fearful because this we don't recognize this country anymore if everyone just stays silent. So I think the severity has changed.
No, that's 100% right. I mean, as soon as you have kids, all of a sudden, all the issues where you thought, okay, well, you know what, if you kick it down the road, is it really that big a deal? Everything becomes incredibly immediate because you can see that in 20 years, you know, I'm 37. In 20 years, I'll be 57. Well, in 20 years, my kids are just going to be young adults, and so they're just going to be starting, you know, their life here. What are things going to be like? If things are this bad now, what are things going to be like in 20 years if we continue along this trajectory?
Yeah.
So there's that. As far as sort of how it's affected career, I like to travel a lot less than I did. I was much easier traveling than now. Like I don't want to be away from my kids. Like, as I was leaving to come here this week, my 4-year-old son turns to me and he goes, "Don't go to Nashville, Dad. Don't go to Nashville." And I was like, that is the saddest thing. It tears your heart out. You're like, why are you doing this? I did inform him. He's like, how am I going to know when you're back? It's like, well, because I was coming back late at night. I'm coming back late at night. And he says, how do I know then you're going to be back? So I'm going to come in your room. I'm going to take pants out of your drawer and put them on your head. And he said,
That's so cute.
And he said, okay, so tonight.
I like Ben the dad. We don't get this of a Ben. Like,
Yeah,
this is actually great.
Yeah, silly Ben is Ben the dad.
Yeah.
My kids don't know that I'm severe or harsh in any way.
Yeah,
That's not. They think that I'm just a giant goofball. I'm like, I carry them around and flip them around and throw them up in the air and all that kind of stuff. So it changes you that way. You take yourself a lot less seriously because kids will absolutely wreck you.
Yeah.
I mean, like
most honest people in the world.
And also they're just, you realize that you're not in control of anything. Because the thing about kids, especially like when they're babies, they're super cute. But then as soon as you watch, when they hit about, it's not terrible 2s, it's terrible 3s and 4s.
Okay.
Once they hit 3, they turn into the worst people that ever lived.
No, they're violent. Toddlers are violent.
They're awful, awful little people.
Yeah.
So they're innocent, but they're terrible small children. And if they ever, this is why when people are like, yeah, a child should make up their own mind about their gender. It's like, I wouldn't let my kid choose what to eat for dinner. Are you insane? Right. Are you a crazy person? Kids are the worst people on earth. And when you realize that your job is to try and mold them, and also that you have no control over them whatsoever beyond a certain point, that is definitely a different feeling. So it definitely, kids humble you. They make you take life a lot more seriously and also simultaneously not as seriously. And they expand your emotional boundaries. What I always say to folks about having kids is that when you're single, your spectrum of happiness to unhappiness ranges from about a 7 to a 0, right? 0 is like you're pretty unhappy, and 7 is like you're pretty happy. Then you get married, and your maximum happiness is like a 10, and your minimum happiness is like a negative 10. Because if something happens that's bad to your spouse, then it actually affects you, right? So before you might have been a 0, but it's worse when something bad happens to your spouse.
Absolutely.
And then you have kids, and all limits are removed. The best things that ever happen to you are your kids, and by far the worst things that ever happen to you are things that have to do with your kids.
Wow.
And so it's walking a tightrope without any sort of net.
People always say
beneath.
the expression. It's like, see your heart being out of your chest and walking around.
And it's all
you have no
the time.
control over where it's going.
Oh my God, it's all the time.
Yeah.
Like when they do stuff that's wonderful, it's so wonderful. When they do stuff that's terrible, it's so terrible.
Yeah.
And then
I'm so excited I'm just starting this chapter because I think family is just the best. And I'm like, now that I have a son, everything he does, I'm just like, he's perfect. He's amazing. Look what he just
How
did.
dare you define his gender before he's 18? How dare you? You're assigning him a gender, Candace. You're not allowed to do that.
Yeah, exactly.
How do you know you have a son?
Wait until he turns 6
90.
and tells you.
Wait until he dies. He might change a few times in between.
Ridiculous. Yeah. Boy, healthy boy.
Did you know that every like on this video creates one additional leftist tier? Don't ask me why. That's called science. To take advantage of this amazing opportunity, hit the like button.
This is the equivalent of 70 eggs sitting right on your shelf for times when you need them most. That could be tomorrow or 25 years from now. That's right. Our eggs last up to 25 years. Fresh eggs, not so
So here we are with Charlie Kirk and Candace Owens. Charlie, of course, is the head of Turning Point USA, and Candace is the communications director, is your official title, over at Turning Point USA. And it's really exciting to have you here. I'm glad you could squeeze in the time because you guys have been busy setting the world on fire. I mean, you're in the headlines and you're all over Twitter, obviously, and on social media. Why don't you give me sort of the status update, Charlie, and then I want to ask Candace some questions about sort of what's going on in her great crusade to break up a lot of the group identity politics.
Things have been going great. I mean, we've had an unbelievable semester. We spoke, I think, over 38 times since January 1st on campuses, and that takes a grind because you do a lot of speaking too. We did UCLA, Stanford, and UC Berkeley in the last 6 weeks, which has been amazing. We have our Young Women's Leadership Summit coming up next week. You're speaking there, and we've just been kicking butt, taking names. We're expanding to more and more campuses, but we see a not so silent majority growing on college campuses, and the revolution is brewing.
Yeah, how are you handling the additional sort of media attention? Because I saw there's a big New York Times piece on you, and they're not in love, but
with laughter,
predictably.
And but look, that's how you're making a difference, right? No one hunts small deer, as I always like to say. And having Candace as an added component of what we're doing, if not the leading the charge, has just been awesome. It's just been amazing to have her voice be able to message out to this generation and to our members and our students on campus. It's been really powerful.
Well, speaking of on fire, obviously, Candace, you've just exploded onto the scene. I think probably a year and a half ago, nobody knew who you were. And now everybody knows who you are. So how's that been, that sort of precipitous rise?
It's been challenging in some ways, I guess, because you have to understand that every time that you gain, I guess you could say, 200,000 followers, you have to sort of change your approach because people start looking at you from different angles, and you have to become more of an example for many people. And it's an interesting place to be in when you can tweet something and it becomes national news. It's bizarre, and people don't understand that. They don't understand, and it's not only national news, it's how they interpret it. It could not be what you intended, but that becomes national news, their own interpretation of it. So it's been challenging, but it's also been tremendously exciting because we're seeing the difference in the comments. We're seeing that Black people are starting to debate one another, and they weren't doing that. They all had decided that they were Democrats, and that was it. They had to accept that because Republicans were racist, because you're a racist, because Charlie is a racist,
well,
right?
Of course, I mean,
that's it. They've accepted that.
Yeah.
So it's interesting to see them start to have a different discussion and to start to view me as someone who's a lot more thoughtful than they initially thought. They thought it was all for a paycheck, right? And the tides are turning.
So how did you get here ideologically? Because that's how did you get from point A to point B? Because again, it's not like, I came up in the conservative movement, Charlie came up in the conservative movement, but you're relatively new to the conservative movement. So what's sort of your conversion story? What was the moment on the road to Damascus?
It was a lot. I always say this. I was never a liberal in terms of politics. I just assumed I was a liberal. I didn't care about politics at all. And that's really the truth about the majority of the Black community. We're not paying attention to politics. Our communities have been so burdened by issues, by finances, by the fact that the father is removed from the home. One of my favorite videos, by the way, is of you when you shut down Black Lives Matter and you start asking some really good questions. One of the first videos that Charlie sent me when I started sort of having this awakening and wanting to get involved. And I looked to people like you to sort of say, wait a second, something's not adding up. So I would say in, I guess, July of last year, I was working in finance, was not paying attention to politics at all. Obviously, I think with the rise of Donald Trump, everyone started paying attention to politics. Everyone had to develop an opinion. And what it came down to was that my beliefs and everything that I had fought for in my life aligned with conservatism. I've always had to work hard. I was never given any handouts. I had $100,000 in student loan debt. My grandfather is extremely pious. I was raised with prayers around the dinner table, the Bible stories in the morning. And today, that's a conservative position. So when I started paying attention, I realized that I was a conservative.
Well, what's really interesting is all these new conversations that are happening. I mean, obviously, the most prominent that both of you have been involved in are these conversations with Kanye West, which I can say completely came out of left field for most people, myself included. So how much do you think that those conversations are actually shifting across the country for young people? And then also, how much do you think that the celebrity conversations shift conversations more broadly?
And I will say this, it came out of left field for me and for you, but not for her. When I first, so I hired Candace Owens 4.5 minutes after I met her. I saw passion and vision unlike anything that I've encountered. And from the first couple minutes afterwards, she's like, Charlie, you don't understand. Kanye West is going to come out as a conservative Trump supporter. I was like, what? I was like, come on. And I'm not very pop culturally literate. She's been doing better there. Next
More
thing
than I
know-
am. I mean, everyone's more pop culture literate than I am.
No, you'd be surprised. I was like, wait, is he the one married to Beyonce? And she's like, did I just agree to work for this guy?
It was so bad.
We're doing a lot better now. But she started to get me listening to his music, all sort of stuff. It's like just pounding me. And she's like, this is going to happen. And so that's the first thing. But I mean, when this happened and he said, I love the way Candace Owens thinks, that was one of his first public statements in a long time. And, she's since kind of has formed a friendship and relationship there. But I think you saw Chance the Rapper come out and he had to then denounce what he said, not all black people have to be Democrats. But I love this. And Candace pointed out so accurately on Twitter, Kanye didn't apologize for his vocalization of support. And now his music's doing better than ever. Doing better than Eminem, who went after him and tried to make a whole career out of it.
So I understood, obviously, coming from within a black home, which you can understand the stats, and it's important that you do. I think what you do is so important when you hit the stage and you ask these questions, when you talk about the single motherhood rate. But in order to understand how we got brainwashed, how did I'm always been a very smart girl. I've always placed well in school and on tests. How did I start to believe that all Republicans were racist? So I had to sort of say, when did this seep into my mind? And the truth is that it's systematic. There are 3 verticals that they're able to attack. If you say it's attack, I think it's an attack, the way that Black people think. The first is family. It's the breakdown of the family, which you've spoken about, right? The single motherhood rate. And when you remove the father from the home, the Black youth then begins to idolize culture. This vertical is so important. When you understand that instead of listening to mom and dad because dad's not in the home, they're listening to Jay-Z and Kanye West and Beyonce to tell them what's right and what's wrong. This is why Hillary Clinton throws a Jay-Z and a Beyonce concert and doesn't actually go into the Black communities and speak to them about their issues, because she knows that if she can get Beyonce to wear an I'm with her shirt, then the Black community will support it. Do I agree with that? No, but that's what's happening. So that vertical has to be attacked. The third, of course, is education. We learn our history wrong. We actually are learning in school that the Republican and Democratic Party switched. The Southern strategy is taught in school. I didn't really know how to attack that vertical, but Charlie was already doing it. So I understood the first 2 and Charlie understood the third. And it was sort of like a perfect partnership. And that was what we really wanted to go after.
Well, what you guys obviously are doing is making a big difference. I mean, we see all the videos online of you talking to people who never would have considered conservatism before, and suddenly they're looking at it for a second time and starting all these conversations. And really good luck to everything you're doing. I mean, I know that you guys are running from place to place. You have an incredibly busy schedule over the next few weeks, particularly. And I hope that you continue to do so much of the good work that you've been doing. Obviously, I've been a big advocate for Turning Point for a long time. And you guys are doing great work out there. So really appreciate it. So thanks for stopping by. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. This is awesome.
Thanks.
Recordings just got better. Hey, it's Dana from StreamYard. I'm so excited to announce that local recordings are now available